The signal drifted through the endless dark of space, weak and broken, yet still alive. It was a voice of fear, a voice of pain, a desperate cry for help. Across the cold stars, it repeated again and again, begging anyone, begging anything, to answer. The people who sent it were not human. They were small, fragile, and already beaten by war. Their cities were burning, their armies crushed, their future almost gone. They had called for mercy. They had called for food, for medicine, for hope. But the signal traveled further than they ever dreamed. It reached Earth, the home of Deathworlders, a name whispered in fear across the galaxy. To many aliens, humans were monsters that survived in a world too dangerous to exist. They thought Earth was cursed, filled with storms, predators, and endless wars. And yet the humans had not only survived, they had grown. They had built ships, weapons, and dreams that spread beyond the stars. When the signal reached Earth, it did not go to diplomats. It did not go to charities or healers. It went straight into the hands of the military. Silent rooms filled with screens lit up with the alien SOS. Officers listened to the cries of mercy, and they did not smile. They only nodded, as if this was something expected. In secret chambers deep under the ground, a council gathered. These were men and women who carried the weight of humanity's choices. They listened to the alien voices begging for help. Some voices shook with fear, some cried, some whispered, and the humans listened in silence. Then the highest-ranking officer, an old man with scars across his face, spoke only one line. "They ask for mercy," he said. "We will send a warship." The room was quiet. No one questioned him. No one argued. This was the way of humanity. They had been called monsters, predators, survivors. Now they would prove it, far away, in a hidden dock beneath the oceans. A ship waited. It was not large like the Empire's fleets. It was not shining or beautiful. It was dark, sharp, and silent. Its body was built with angles that confused scanners. Its engines hummed like the heartbeat of a predator. This ship had no name known to the galaxy, but to the humans it was called Deliverance. Inside the ship, the crew prepared. They were not many, only a handful of men and women. Their eyes were cold, their movements precise. They did not speak of mercy. They did not carry food or blankets. They carried weapons no other species dared to build. They were trained for one thing only, to fight and to end wars in the human way. The launch was hidden from the world. No public cheers, no speeches, only silence as the massive doors opened beneath the sea. Water rushed aside as the warship rose, its black hull cutting through waves like a blade. Its engines lit with a pale fire, and slowly it rose higher and higher into the sky. Clouds broke apart as the ship climbed into the cold night. Then, with a silent flash, it was gone, swallowed by the stars. On distant worlds, the alien refugees still cried for help. They expected mercy. They expected kindness. They did not know what was really coming. Whispers already spread among smugglers and traders. "The Deathworlders have heard the call," they said. "But they are not sending aid." Others asked in fear, "Then what are they sending?" And no one could answer. But deep in the dark between stars, the answer was already moving. The human warship carried no banners, no songs, no mercy. It carried only the will of a people who had learned one truth. A signal for mercy in this galaxy did not always call for healers. Sometimes it called for hunters. As Deliverance moved silently through the void, its captain stood on the bridge. His hands rested on the steel railing, his eyes watching the endless black sea. He thought of the signal, of the begging voices, of the word mercy. Slowly, a thin smile crossed his face, and he whispered, "We will give them our mercy, the humankind." The crew did not cheer. They only nodded, checking weapons, preparing systems. The engines pulsed stronger. The ship's dark hull glimmered with deadly light, and far away, where the enemy empire ruled with fire and fear, a shadow was already falling toward them. The SOS had been answered, but not with what anyone expected. The warship moved in silence, cutting through the dark ocean of space like a predator hidden in the deep. To the human crew, the silence was normal. To everyone else in the galaxy, it would have been terrifying. The ship carried no music, no laughter, no comfort. It carried only the cold heartbeat of machines and the sharper heartbeat of those who commanded them. Inside the bridge, the lights were dim. Shadows stretched across steel walls. The captain stood tall, his eyes locked on the stars ahead. Beside him, Officers sat at their stations, their hands steady, their faces hard. Every person on this ship had been chosen not for mercy, but for survival. Each one carried scars, not always on the body, but deep in the soul. The ship itself seemed alive. Its engines did not roar. They whispered, a sound so soft that it felt like a beast breathing in the dark. Along its hull, strange panels shifted, bending light and hiding heat. To scanners, the ship appeared like a ghost, slipping between worlds unseen, but hidden inside were weapons the galaxy had never faced. Cannons that could tear fleets apart, launchers that could turn planets into fire, and weapons so secret even the crew whispered about them only in silence. This was no simple ship. This was humanity's answer to every empire that had ever believed humans were weak. Whispers had already begun to spread through the stars. Rumors traveled faster than light. Pirates, smugglers, and spies carried the same story. The Deathworlders did not send food, they sent a warship, in cantinas and marketplace. SOS, frightened voices asked, what kind of ship, how big, how strong? But no one knew. Only one truth grew. Fear, meanwhile, in the heart of the enemy empire, leaders gathered in golden halls. They had heard the same rumors. At first they laughed. A single ship? Sent from a backwater planet at the edge of the galaxy? They mocked the idea, calling humans reckless children. But as days passed, reports began to arrive. Patrols missing, stations gone silent, blackened wreckage found floating in the void. Something was moving through their space, something no one could track. The captain of the warship read those reports with cold eyes. He knew the Empire would soon learn fear. He wanted them to feel it before the first battle even began. He wanted their admirals to lose sleep, their soldiers to tremble, their citizens to whisper in dread, the Deathworlders are coming. Suspense grew each day as deliverance pushed deeper. The crew remained silent, training, running drills, checking weapons. No one wasted time with hope or kindness. They all knew why they were here. They were not heroes, they were hunters. Finally, the first enemy fleet appeared on the edge of their scanners, 30 ships armed and ready, blocking the path. The admiral of that fleet laughed as he saw the lone warship. One human vessel, he sneered. We will crush it in minutes. His soldiers cheered, confident in their numbers, but on the bridge of deliverance, the captain did not flinch. His voice was calm, low, like a storm waiting to break. Weapons online, he ordered. The crew obeyed in silence, hands moving with precision. The enemy fleet advanced, engines burning bright, weapons charging. A wall of firepower prepared to erase the humans. And then, the warship moved. It did not fire first. Instead, it vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. The enemy admiral shouted in anger, his scanners blind, and then, from the shadows, the warship struck. A single blast tore through the lead ship, cutting it in half. Alarms screamed. Across the enemy fleet, another blast came, then another, silent flashes of light that ripped ships apart like paper. Panic spread, soldiers screamed, officers begged for orders, but none came. The admiral himself was frozen, his mouth open in disbelief. For every one human shot, 3 enemy ships burned. Deliverance moved like a ghost, appearing, striking, and vanishing again. Its weapons cut deeper than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Within minutes, the once proud fleet was nothing but wreckage drifting in the void. On the bridge of deliverance, the crew did not cheer. They did not smile. They only worked, cold and precise. The captain whispered as he watched the destruction. This is the mercy they asked for. Far across the Empire, news of the battle spread faster than fire. The name Deathworlders grew heavier. Aliens whispered in fear. The humans have sent a warship. The colonies that had begged for aid now began to hope. For the first time they wondered, maybe this warship was not only death but salvation. But the Empire understood something darker. If one ship could destroy an entire fleet, what would happen if Earth sent more? And so, as the wreckage of the first battle floated in silence, the galaxy held its breath. For the warship was still moving forward deeper into enemy space. A storm had awakened, and nothing could stop it now. The wreckage of the enemy fleet still drifted cold in space, broken ships turning slowly in the void. Smoke and fire trailed across the stars like dying comets. For the Empire, this should have been impossible. A single human warship had done what whole rebel forces could not. But Deliverance did not stop to admire its work. The captain gave no speeches, no orders of celebration. The ship turned quietly and moved deeper into enemy space, its dark hull sliding through the void like a blade searching for its next targets. Yet the galaxy trembled with whispers. Spies carried the news. Smugglers spread the truth. 30 ships destroyed, they said. 30 ships against one. Even the strongest admirals began to lose sleep. If a single human ship could do this, what more could be hidden on Earth? In the Empire's capital, leaders shouted in fear and anger. Some demanded more fleets, some demanded to burn Earth itself, but others stayed silent, for deep inside they knew this was not a normal enemy. This was a predator answering a call. For days, Deliverance vanished. No scanners found it, no patrols saw it, but ships began to disappear, stations went silent, outposts sent one last signal, then nothing. It was as if a shadow moved across the stars, swallowing everything it touched. Finally, an admiral of the Empire gathered a larger fleet, 50 ships this time, armed with the newest weapons. "We will corner them," he promised. "We will end this ghost once and for all." His soldiers believed him, but fear still lingered in their eyes. The trap was set near a dying star. Ships formed a wide net, scanners ready, weapons charged. They waited in silence. Every captain whispered the same thought. The humans cannot escape this time. But Deliverance was already there, hidden in the black. Its crew watched silently as the enemy spread their net. The captain's voice was calm, steady. "They wait for us," he said, "so we will show them what they wait for." Then the ship revealed itself. Its engines burned with pale fire as it slid out of the shadows. For the first time, the enemy saw Deliverance clearly. Its hull was jagged, sharp, built not for beauty but for terror. Strange lights glowed along its sides, weapons hidden beneath armor that seemed alive. The Empire's admiral gave the order, "Fire." The void exploded with light. 50 ships opened fire at once. Beams of plasma, swarms of missiles, rivers of fire filled the dark. The star itself seemed to shiver as the storm of weapons struck. And yet, when the light faded, Deliverance still stood. Its shields burned like fire, its armor smoking, but it did not fall. Slowly, its cannons came alive. One blast cut through an enemy battleship, splitting it in two. Another blast vaporized a cruiser. A third unleashed a wave that shattered shields like glass. The Empire's fleet screamed in panic, their tight formation breaking apart. But Deliverance did not chase them wildly. It moved like a hunter, choosing targets one by one. Every strike was precise, deadly, unshakable. In less than an hour, half the fleet was gone, drifting as fire and ash. On the bridge, the crew worked like machines, eyes steady, hands swift. No one wasted a word, no one wasted a breath. They were not fighting for glory, they were delivering judgment. The Admiral of the Empire watched his fleet crumble, his heart froze in terror. He sent desperate calls for reinforcements, but the signal never reached. Deliverance had already jammed every channel. The Admiral realized the truth. He was not fighting a ship, he was fighting a weapon born of a death world. And then Deliverance vanished again, fading back into the shadows. Only wreckage remained, floating in silence. Across the galaxy, the story grew. Children whispered it in fear, rebels whispered it in hope. The message was always the same. The Death Worlders did not send aid, they sent a warship. In the hidden chambers of the Human Council back on Earth, the news arrived. The old scarred commander listened to the reports. He said nothing, only a small nod as if everything was going according to plan. And out in the stars, Deliverance moved forward, deeper and deeper. A storm was coming, and the galaxy had only seen the first lightning strike. The Empire's fleets lay in ruins. Wreckage drifted across the stars like grave markers. Entire sectors had gone silent. Patrol ships never return. "Ed," colonies whispered of a shadow passing by, a hunter no one could see. But Deliverance was not finished. It did not fight for battles alone. It fought for something greater. Fear? Fear was stronger than weapons. Fear was faster than fleets. Fear could break an empire before the final shot was fired. The captain understood this. His voice was calm as he stood on the bridge. "We have shown them our strength," he said. "Now we will show them our silence." For days the warship vanished. It did not fire, it did not strike, it only moved quietly, its presence felt but never seen. Outposts reported strange shadows, ships claimed to hear ghost signals on their comms. Some swore they saw glowing eyes in the dark, others swore the humans could hear their thoughts. Soon paranoia spread faster than truth. Commanders fired at empty space, soldiers abandoned stations, entire fleets turned their guns on each other. The humans had not fired a shot, but still, the Empire bled. Then came the first message. It was short, carried on every frequency, a voice cold and steady. "Your cries were heard," the human captain said. "We answer in our way." The words echoed across every world. On the colonies that had sent the SOS, hope began to grow. They listened to the message again and again. "The Death Worlders heard us," they whispered. "They are here." But in the heart of the Empire, the same words became poison. Citizens trembled, leaders panicked, admirals shouted, but their hands shook. The Emperor himself sat in his golden hall. His advisors begged him to send more fleets, to use every weapon. But the Emperor knew something none of them could admit. "This is not war," he said, his voice low. "This is judgment." Meanwhile, Deliverance kept moving. One night it would appear near a prison world, and the next day every guard was gone, the gates broken, the prisoners free, another night. It had appeared near a shipyard, and by morning the shipyard was ash. No one ever saw the strike, only the aftermath. The crew of Deliverance spoke little. They did not cheer for victories. They only worked cold and precise, yet deep inside, each of them felt it. They were changing the galaxy, one battle at a time, one shadow at a time. Soon, entire sectors surrendered without firing a shot. Governors sent messages begging humanity for mercy. Fleets abandoned their posts, drifting into rebellion or silence. The Empire was breaking, not by numbers, but by fear. But the captain knew this was only the beginning. His eyes watched the star map as red lights, the enemy strongholds, faded one by one. His whisper carried across the bridge. "Let them fear us. Let them know we come. When they are broken, we will strike at their heart." The crew nodded in silence. Their fingers danced over controls, their eyes sharp and cold. Outside, the warship glowed faintly in the starlight, a predator waiting for the final kill. And across the galaxy, the message of fear grew stronger. The Death Worlders were no longer just a name. They were a storm, and everyone knew storms only grow until nothing stands against them. The Empire was bleeding. Colony after colony slipped from its control. Fleets broke apart. Soldiers deserted. Leaders shouted, but no one listened. The shadow of Deliverance had done more damage than 1,000 armies, but fear alone could not end the Empire. And so, at last, the Emperor made his choice. He called every fleet, every admiral, every weapon. From the farthest edges of his dominion, ships gathered. From burning colonies, soldiers marched. From secret vaults, forbidden weapons were pulled into the light. It was the greatest fleet the Empire had ever assembled. Hundreds of ships, their hulls glowing with shields, their cannons ready to drown the stars in fire. The Emperor himself stood before them, his voice carried through every channel. "We are the Empire," he roared. And, "We will not bow to Death Worlders," his soldiers cheered, but inside, many trembled. Meanwhile, Deliverance moved silently through the void. On its bridge, the crew read the reports, their eyes calm. The captain watched the map as more and more red marks gathered, fleets converging like storm clouds. He did not smile, he did not fear, he only whispered, "Good, let them come." The storm was rising, across the galaxy, everyone held their breath. Merchants fled, rebels waited, colonies prayed. All eyes turned to the space between stars, where the Empire's armada and the lone warship would soon meet. On the Empire's flagship, the Grand Admiral stood tall. His pride burned like fire. He believed numbers would crush the humans. He believed Deliverance would finally fall. "When the Death Worlders arrive," he told his captains, "we will show them the strength of an empire." But Deliverance had already changed the rules of war. The human ship moved with silence. Its engines pulsed like a heartbeat. Its crew moved with precision. They studied the armada, scanned every ship, read every formation. They saw weakness where the Empire saw strength. Then came the first strike, not from the Empire, but from Deliverance. A wave of energy swept across the stars, invisible to most eyes. Entire communication lines collapsed. The great fleet shouted orders, but their voices vanished into static. Admirals screamed, but their commands never reached their ships. The Empire had come with strength, but Deliverance had stolen its voice. Panic spread, captains turned blind, soldiers shouted in confusion. Then from the darkness, Deliverance appeared. Its weapons lit the void with deadly light. A single blast cut through a carrier. Another tore apart a cruiser. In moments, the first dozen ships burned, but still the armada pushed forward. Hundreds against one, firepower filled the stars. AMs and missiles rained down. The sky turned to fire. Shields of Deliverance burned. Armor shook. The crew tightened their jaws, fingers racing over controls. The captain's voice was steady, even as the storm closed in. "We are not here to survive," he said. "We are here to break them." The ship vanished again, slipping into shadows. Enemy guns fired at empty space. Then Deliverance struck from behind, tearing holes in the fleet's formation. Dozens of ships collided, explosions spreading. Soldiers who once shouted victory now screamed in terror. Rebel colonies watching from afar began to rise. Seeing the Empire falter, they struck back. Uprisings flared like wildfires. The Empire's power crumbled not just in space, but across its worlds. All while one human warship carved its name into history. The storm had risen, and in its heart stood Deliverance. One ship against hundreds, one predator against an empire, and still it moved forward deeper toward the Empire's very heart. The storm had reached its peak. Across the galaxy, flames of rebellion burned brighter. The Empire was cracking, but its heart still stood. The capital world, a jewel of towers and palaces, guarded by the greatest fleet ever built. The Emperor himself had ordered it. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon, protect the capital. And so they gathered. A wall of steel and fire around the world. Thousands of guns ready, hundreds of fleets united. This was no ambush, no scattered patrol. This was the full might of an empire. Into this storm, Deliverance came, alone, silent, its dark hull gliding through the stars. The crew saw the enemy's strength, but their eyes did not shake. They had always known it would end here, not in shadows, but in fire. On the bridge, the captain stood calm. His hand rested on the steel railing. His voice cut through the silence. "This is not survival," he said. "This is history." The Empire's Grand Admiral gave the order, "Destroy them." The stars exploded. Beams of fire brighter than suns tore through the void. Missiles screamed, cannons roared. The sky itself seemed to break. Deliverance vanished into the chaos, slipping between explosions. Its shields flared, armor cracked, but still it moved. Then came the answer. A single blast from Deliverance ripped through 3 cruisers at once. Another carved open a battleship. A third sent shockwaves across the fleet. The hunters had become the hunted, but the Empire was not weak here. Their numbers were endless. Their weapons rained like storms. Deliverance twisted, dodged, and struck back. Yet the crew felt the weight. For the first time, alarms screamed across the bridge. Sparks fell from the ceiling. The ship groaned like a beast in pain. The captain's voice did not falter. "We bleed, but so do they," he said. His eyes burned with fire. "Press forward." The crew obeyed, fingers moving faster, hands steady. They unleashed weapons never seen before. A wave of energy cut through shields like paper. Gravity warheads bent space, dragging ships into their own fire. The Empire's fleets crumbled. Hundreds of ships tore themselves apart, the void filled with wreckage. Still, the capital burned with defense. Planetary cannons unleashed fire from the surface. Massive beams reached out into space, each one strong enough to erase a fleet. Deliverance dove and weaved, its hull shaking, its engines screamed. Its crew held on as the ship danced with death. The Admiral of the Empire watched in disbelief. He had sent everything, and still the human warship cut through. He shouted orders, begged his fleets to hold, but fear had broken them. Entire squadrons fled. Some even turned on each other. The warship had done what no Empire weapon could. It had shattered their spirit. Then, at last, Deliverance revealed its final weapon. The captain gave the order. His crew unlocked the core. A storm of light burst from the ship. Not fire, not missiles, but something greater, a weapon of silence, a wave that moved through steel, shields, and flesh. Entire fleets went dark, engines died, weapons froze. Ships drifted powerless, caught in the cold grasp of death. The Empire's capital world stared into the sky and saw its armada fall silent. Thousands of ships frozen like statues in orbit, and among them only one vessel moved. Deliverance. The galaxy trembled. In that moment they all understood. The humans had not come to survive. They had come to decide. The Empire's armada hung silent above the capital world. Thousands of ships drifting, powerless, their lights gone. The Great Wall of Fire had turned into a graveyard. Only one ship still moved. Deliverance, its dark hull glowing faintly, cutting through the frozen wreckage like a shadow among corpses. On the bridge, the crew sat in silence. The battle alarms were quiet. The guns no longer fired. For the first time since they had left Earth, there was no enemy standing, no fleet waiting, no storm to face, but the question still remained. What now? The Emperor stood inside his golden palace, his hands shaking as he watched the skies. He had sent everything, his fleets, his armies, his faith, and all had fallen before the Death Worlders. His empire, once eternal, now lay broken. Messages poured in from across the galaxy, colonies begging for freedom, soldiers deserting, rebels rising. Everyone looked to the humans, everyone waited to see, would they show mercy or would they burn everything? The captain of Deliverance stood tall, his face lit by the dim glow of shattered stars. His crew looked at him, waiting, for they knew his word would decide not just the Empire, but the galaxy. Mercy or annihilation, one officer whispered. The captain's eyes were cold, but not empty. He remembered the voices from the SOS, the cries for help, the begging for food, for safety. He remembered why they had come. He had never promised mercy in the way others understood it, but humanity had always kept its word. He gave the order. His voice steady, transmit. Across the galaxy, screens flickered, radios crackled, holograms lit. The human captain's face appeared, scarred, unshaken. His words carried into every world. Your cries were heard, he said, and they have been answered. The Empire is broken. You are free. But hear me well. If any new empire rises, if any dares to enslave again, then know this. Humanity will answer, and we will not send healers. We will send war. The message burned like fire across the stars. To the colonies, it was hope. To the rebels, it was freedom. To the broken empire, it was the end. On the bridge, the crew sat in silence. Their mission was done. Their weapons powered down. Their engines slowed. The storm had passed, and yet, even in victory, the galaxy trembled. For everyone knew the truth now. Humans were not saviors. They were something greater, something far more dangerous. They were Death Worlders. And when the galaxy called for mercy, they answered in their own way. As Deliverance turned away from the ruined capital, its engines burning softly, whispers spread, whispers of the next SOS, the next desperate call. No one knew where, no one knew when, but all knew the answer. When the signal reached Earth, humanity would rise again, and the galaxy would once more hold its breath.